Hello, my name is Thane and I like to experiment with AI art. In this video, let's continue our exploration of all kinds of color words. I still have plenty of them that I really wanted to show you before moving on to all kinds of different topics. As usual, let's go through the basics. All of the images in this video were generated with Midjourney with currently the latest version 5. At the time of making this video, I have used the default style, which is rumored to become a raw style in the future. Right now you can generate version 5 images by adding --v5 to your prompt. Or type /settings and select version 5 from the buttons that appear. Normally I do really short prompts and I prefer it that way. It's because I want to see what impact all kinds of words and phrases actually have and what the model comes up with. I have prompted each color word just by themselves and also followed by comma and all kinds of different subjects. I have tried to provide a wide variety of different subjects like landscape, wildlife, macro, city, interior, architecture, portrait, fantasy and sci-fi. For slightly better looking images, I have used a couple of negative prompts by adding --no text, mockup. I know there's endless possibilities for that as well, but I selected just these two because I've had good results with them in the past. Feel free to add as many words to the negative side as well as to your actual prompt. My experimentation is to give you a rough idea of what this current model does with these words. And for comparison purposes, I have also used the same seed number with --seed 777. You don't have to include that in your prompts. And for the images with subjects, I have selected to use the aspect ratio --916, because I like it. I have tried to select color words that seem to make the images look different from the default style. And also those that I just like. Let's start out with a color that is reminiscent of a cool ocean breeze and the gentle movement of waves. Let's dive into Seafoam. Just with this word we get a variety of materials. Some stones and soapy-looking substances. And some actual sea foam in a wavy sea. The sea theme seems to continue in the nature-related images. Landscapes are of wavy seas. Wildlife is birds and turtles on a beach. And macro looks like some kind of coral. Even the city images lean heavily on the foamy sea theme. But in interiors it is the first time we see the actual color. Architecture shows some interesting looking facades. In portraits we get a wide variety of things. The top left lady has some odd stuff on her face. The top right lady seems to be on the beach with a seafoam colored scarf. The lower left girl has a foamy looking jacket. Fantasy images are a mix of figurines and abstract wavy images. And sci-fi seems to be diving underwater. This vibrant green hue, named after the precious gemstone, can add a pop of freshness to any palette. Peridot. Just the word seems to be generating lots of images of the gemstones. There is some variety in the nature-related images. Although the gemstones are heavily present here too. Landscapes are basically figurines or sculptures carved from or glued to a Peridot gemstone cluster. In city images, we get a totally different style. This usually happens if this word or phrase is used in another context as well. In this case, I think that Peridot is a character in a cartoon. So city images have combined the color Peridot and the cartoony style of drawing. I don't know how interior has ended up with basically macro shots of gemstones. And architecture is leaning towards using Peridot as a building material. And the last set of images is going very cartoony. I really like these images. Even the portraits look so different from what we usually see. Fantasy images have kind of fairy tale dresses and sci-fi follows the same look, but the clothing is just more futuristic. A classic and timeless color, it is often associated with mystery and sophistication. Midnight black. This looks like a very luxurious color with the handbags, watches and sports cars. I think I tested out this at a time when the Milky Way images tended to look kind of weird most of the time. You can check it out yourself too, just prompt something like Milky Way or Starry Sky and they will look similarly odd. But otherwise the nature images look quite nice with the contrasts going on in them, and you can see a lot in the images even though black is the main color in them. Architecture-related images look more traditional and default to me, nothing here that really stands out. Fantasy images seem to produce some dress designs with this color. I really like the top right sci-fi image with the robot or man in a macasuate standing in the forest in the middle of the night. Complementary colors sit opposite each other on the color wheel and can create a striking contrast when paired together. Complementary. And Midjourney seems to recognize that this word is usually found in the context of complementary colors. The images look quite colorful. The nature images seem to be in the more default Midjourney style, but the landscapes look really nice in my opinion. For some reason it looks like complementary means more orange for Midjourney, as it tends to look that way in the architecture-related images. The orange Y theme seems to continue in the last images as well. I really like the fantasy images of this word. But now that I look at all of these images, I guess this does tend to go more towards the default style of Midjourney with just slight color variations. This soft blue-green shade is reminiscent of tropical waters and can bring a calming effect to any design. Aquamarine. And it is another synonym for a gemstone with the same name, as is obvious from the images generated with just this word. Landscapes don't really look anything like landscapes. Animals are half very literal with the marine animals swimming in water. But I don't know what those white rodents with strange tails are. Macro is just a close-up of the gemstone. City looks interesting in some of the images, gemstone theme is still going very strong. As can also be seen in the interior images. Architecture images have very sharp angles and actually the color as well. I guess the portraits look kind of different with the combination of the gemstones. Fantasy is really overpowered too. Sci-fi has come out very nice actually. A bright and cheerful shade, spring green can add a touch of playfulness and energy to any project. Spring green. So this combination obviously has strong ties to nature and very green trees, as that is what we get with just spring green as the prompt. Landscape images look nice, although they feel more summery to me. Wildlife images feel more like spring to me with flowers starting to bloom and leaves that have just appeared on the branches. Architecture-related images tend to get some HDR effect on them again. But color and spring are portrayed. The green and the spring are so powerful that they completely overpower the images. Both fantasy and sci-fi don't have any characters in them like they usually do. And instead we get really green foresty images. Portraits do still have people. A subtle and elegant color, Ecru is often used in natural and earthy palettes, adding a sense of warmth and sophistication. Ecru. I had never even heard of this color before. It tends to look more orange to me than beige or brown. Wildlife is again looking totally different, like a tapestry basically with lots of animals that don't exist. City also has a more drawn style. And interior and architecture look again quite default. Some wide variety of looks in the portraits. Fantasy has gone towards tapestry as well. And sci-fi has not done this kind of images for me before with just one word. Kind of like character design images mostly. Saturation refers to the intensity or purity of a color and can greatly affect the overall mood of a design. Saturation. Why do I get the feeling that saturation or something similar is a stage name of a rapper, singer, or an artist? The skies look very nice in the landscape images. Very oddly colorful animals that don't look that bad. And some more water droplets in macro. I really like the city images, the colors really fit them. Interiors and architecture are looking more ordinary to me, just more color, I guess. And the rapper, singer, or artist with the stage name Saturation seems to be back. Some more images of that guy, except with some stuff I had to actually censor. I really like the insane details in the fantasy images. The familiar blue hue of denim fabric can evoke feelings of comfort and relaxation, while also being versatile and timeless. Denim. I couldn't think of anything else to depict with just this word. Of course we get denim cloth or pants or jackets made of denim. But it does give some funny results for nature-related images. We get landscapes made of denim cloth and animals wearing denim jackets. The city images actually look pretty normal. Interiors look like somebody really loves denim and suitcases. And denim and architecture are quite a strange combination. Portraits again looking quite normal, just people wearing denim jackets. Fantasy is quite tame as well. And sci-fi has some futuristic biker looks. Overall, this word really changes the images that are generated whether you like it or not. This vibrant and lively hue is perfect for adding a sense of energy and celebration. Fiesta. And Midjourney generates some very colorful party scenes with some nice styles. It really pops with landscape and wildlife images. Very different looking images compared to default style. Macro is a bit different too, very colorful. The style does not seem to continue in the architecture-related images. As Fiesta does mean party in Spanish, I do think this comes across strongly in these images. And funnily, in interiors of course we see car interiors of a Ford Fiesta. I'm surprised there's not more cars in the images. Portraits are looking very colorful as well. Fantasy mostly goes back to the style we saw in landscapes and wildlife. And sci-fi images look like a futuristic cosplay party. A muted green with a hint of grey, sage can add a calming and soothing effect to any design. Sage. In addition to being a color, sage has also other meanings. Mainly it is the same color as the plant with the same name. And another meaning is a wise person. We see a couple of those in there as well. Some interesting dry landscapes and animals in those landscapes. Cities are all kind of ground-up views from the perspective of sage plants, I guess. I don't know what is making the interiors look like that. There is no sign of the plant or color or wise people in the interior images. Architecture images at least have the color in them. But the last three subjects are again my favorites out of the bunch. Portraits are good, really wrinkly wise people. Fantasy has some typical nature-loving hermits and wizards possibly. And sci-fi really produces some nice stuff, futuristic yet old-timey masked people or creatures. Really a nice combination, reminds me of the Plague Doctor visuals a bit too, but futuristic. A sophisticated and modern color, silver gray can add a sense of elegance and refinement. Silver gray. A lot of belts and some jars, I guess. Cute animals, one of them seems to have two tails though. City images have a very wide selection of styles. The color is really nice, gray, but a bit shiny. Portraits get some ladies with silvery gray hair. And a horse. And fantasy is a mix of characters in pretty dresses on a white background and some silver jewelry. Sci-fi has some different looking images, kind of a superhero or villain look. A silver Iron Man comes to mind there. This bright and bold shade of blue is often associated with clear skies and endless possibilities. Azure. And the varieties here are also numerous, what we get with just the name of the color. Jewelry is for some reason more preferred. Fittingly very blue skies with a few clouds. Could it also be referring to Azure being Microsoft's cloud platform? The birds look beautiful. And macro images look good too. City images look nice, clouds here again too. Interiors look kind of ordinary, just the color is apparent here. And architecture looks suspiciously like Azure cloud architecture diagrams. Portraits have not made up their mind what style to use. Fantasy has some great images, some fairies this time with pretty flowy dresses in epic settings. Sci-fi is looking very CGI to me, kind of like characters in a video game. A bold and intense shade, fiery red can add a sense of passion and energy to any design. Fiery red. It seems that this color is more often than not referred to as a hair color. It is overwhelmingly all hair in these images. Landscapes have also a red tint as they are supposed to, the skies are very dramatic. Wildlife is in some very unnatural settings or they have some unnatural coloring themselves. Some of the images look very beautiful though. And am I grasping at straws here, but I feel like some of the macro images could be close-ups of red hair. Very dramatic skies offer cities too. Kind of boring interiors, possibly the insides of Ferraris based on the logos on the wheels. And architecture has a bit too unnatural look to them in some images. These images are actually incorporating some fire as well. Luckily the ladies are not too badly on fire, more like made of fire and happy about it. A cheerful and bright shade, spring yellow can bring a sense of happiness and optimism. Spring yellow. I guess I have never personally seen yellow blooms on trees, but they look really pretty. In the nature images the spring yellow looks more like spring to me than the spring green did that we already looked at earlier. Very cute animals in wildlife. Bunnies and birds with flowers. It's odd how this spring theme seems to change the look of the cities from very urban environments with skyscrapers to very green cities that seem to be a lot smaller ones actually. Spring yellow seems to retain the people in fantasy images it seems. And also in one image of sci-fi too. Sci-fi really has a different look with this color in my opinion. Bold and eye-catching, neon colors can add a sense of excitement and energy. Neon. I'm guessing this is a go-to for many people, but let's look at it anyway as it looks cool. Strangely, there's quite many dogs appearing. For a moment there, I thought that landscapes were cities that lost their houses, but I guess neon brings civilization to the landscape images. The wildlife looks like nice light sculptures shaped like animals. And even macro looks different. And it's strange how the neon lights are contrasted by darkness in the images. The same thing continues in architecture-related images as well. Somehow neon is a staple of colored lights at night time. Even fantasy looks more like cyberpunk than fairy tale with neon coloring. And sci-fi has neon robots or people with helmets on. This deep and rich shade of blue can add a sense of depth and seriousness. Indigo. I guess this color really has its roots in textile coloring. And I love how the textile print is meshed together with the landscape theme. I don't particularly love the wildlife images. Architecture images also range from very modern to the style of the place where indigo plants grow. Strong textile influences again in the portraits. I love the fantasy dresses, really pretty. Sci-fi is kind of okay, I guess. I've seen these images so many times with just different colors that these don't really stand out to me that much. Named after the precious gemstone, Topaz can range from soft yellows to deep browns and can add a sense of luxury and richness. Topaz. And obviously the strongest connection is to gemstones. And it's kind of odd we get exactly one blue gemstone in each of the grids. Landscapes look pretty but kind of dangerous at the same time. I get the feeling of proximity to nuclear plants or a lot of pollution. I don't know why the city images look so different. Must be a place called Topaz. They're not that pretty sights there, but a lot different. I like the architecture images, very cool designs. Portraits really veer off to cats and dogs this time. Fantasy can't fantasize anything but gemstones. And sci-fi is looking a little bit different than it usually does. Analogous colors sit next to each other on the color wheel and can create a harmonious and unified palette. Analogous. I really like the lower left tree and the landscape aspect ratio. And the upper right city and its reflection are not bad either. Nature images are looking very colorful and different. Especially the wildlife images for the most part. And some nice whimsical city drawings. Portraits are looking very artsy. Oh dear, the fantasy images look nice and detailed, but so many inappropriate things for YouTube. And quite ordinary looking sci-fi images with several spheres. Reminiscent of the refreshing herb, peppermint can add a cool and invigorating effect. Peppermint. And we do see the herb there, but also the red and white peppermint candy look. Landscapes are peppermint fields obviously. Wildlife is looking strange. A couple of zebras and a few unrecognized animals either eating peppermint candy or actual peppermint. And macro is also an odd amalgamation of the peppermint herb and peppermint striped candy. City images are weird too. I do like the peppermint candy shop feel of the interior images. And the architecture is also quite fun and whimsical with this kind of coloring. I don't know why, but due to peppermint, our portraits are dogs. Fantasy looks great with the peppermint striped dresses and candies looping around there. Sci-fi looks cool, but also kind of strange. But it certainly looked different enough. This bright and fresh shade of blue-green can add a sense of clarity and purity. Aqua. Actually so many figurines here. And some jewelry and other stuff. But as aqua is kind of very recognized word meaning also water, we get some nice watery landscapes with sea-though water. And animals swimming underwater. Cities seem submerged as well. But architecture just gets some nice water features as part of the architecture. Strangely the portraits all look kind of anime to me, underwater of course. Fantasy has some anime, some fairy tale or just concept art I guess. And sci-fi looks nice, but I feel like the women are in kind of strange stances or there is just something wrong with the legs. A tint is a color that has been mixed with white, creating a softer and lighter version of the original hue. Tint. What would be a more obvious choice for tint than tinted sunglasses? Nature images look like they have been using a tinted filter with mixed results. Somehow it gives the architecture-related images kind of a salmon pink color. There's some patterns projected on the faces of the portraits. Looks like there's light shining through a dirty window that is projecting these shadow patterns on the faces. A really wide variety of styles in the fantasy images. Even some stained glass art. And tinted helmet visors in sci-fi. This pearly and iridescent color can add a sense of mystique and ethereal beauty. Moonstone. I seem to have selected a lot of gemstone-related color words for this video. The Moonstone word is so strong, it completely takes over the nature-related images. But there is landscape and animals on some of the Moonstones. City and architecture image are doing literally a moon and houses made of stones. I like the fantasy feel of the city images though. Interior looks kind of totally out of place here, I don't see any hint of moonstones in there. Portraits are again carved out of moonstone. Fantasy just does jewelry. And sci-fi looks to me more like the fantasy was supposed to look like. A soft and cool shade, ice blue can add a sense of calm and tranquility. Ice blue. We have blue, we have ice. And some random other stuff as well. Landscapes and macros look very icy as well. And wildlife too. And they're all polar bears. For some reason the city images are noticeably of London, making the water the River Thames frozen with some different patterns. I guess those are icicles in the ceiling of those interior images. Midjourney seems to be struggling a lot with car interiors as well as the chairs are kind of all over the place and wheels are located in strange places sometimes. And architecture seems to be frozen solid with some really bad insulation judging by the size of those icicles. And some really icy images in portraits, fantasy and sci-fi too. Those fantasy ladies must be freezing in those dresses. They are definitely not suitably dressed for exploring ice caves. An explosion of colors and hues, multicolored designs can create a sense of fun and playfulness. Multicolored. And we end the colors with many colors at once. Basically yarn with lots of colors. Landscapes look like autumn. The animals look really weird and unnatural. I love the colorful cities and houses. The interiors are really whimsical as well. I would not decorate my house to look like that, but to each their own. Fantasy has again lost all characters and is doing some really abstract and intricate forests. Sci-fi has one colorful person in a spacesuit. And otherwise what looks like colorful abstract textile to me. But that was the last one. I again hope you have received some inspiration for your own prompts and explorations. I probably won't touch any color-related words in a while, I guess there's been enough of them already and there's so much else to discover with so little time. But if you like what you have seen, please consider subscribing to my channel. I also appreciate all likes and comments I get too. And I thank all of you that have commented on my previous videos. I am so happy to see that so many people have found my explorations useful in their own AI journey. But there isn't much else for me to say except, let's continue prompting.